really there were three ways, one being just to pull back on the number of games and the different events that we have associated with them. Second option was to eliminate certain sports in their entirety. And the third option was a pay-to-participate model. As I'm sure many of you know, there's been a number of school districts in New Jersey, and we've done some research, certainly nationally, it's a trend to move to this pay-to-participate model. We already have this in place for the ice hockey program. So the ice hockey program is completely parent-funded. And I'll be very honest with you, I think this has a place in the future for this district. Taking a look, as I said, at the financial situation down the road for 1, 2, 3 years, I think this is going to certainly play a role. So I will work with the building leadership to put together a good committee to think out what are the options are to put something like this in place and then bring that to the board for its consideration. In the meantime, and as I said, I've had an opportunity to speak with some winter track parents. I think we have an obligation just to explain what our thinking was on that. Obviously, none of these decisions are easy decisions to make. Some of the characteristics that we were looking for was a program that was currently in place in all 6 schools. As you know, not all schools have all of the same sports and activities. One that was both boys and girls. And also the other thing with winter track was that track athletes also have spring track as an opportunity to participate. And then the distance runners also have cross country. Again, as we look at each area, there are pros and cons, and we weighed that to try and make the best decision we could. The one thing that in some of my conversations with these folks I've had is that I would be, as long as the board was supportive of it, willing to facilitate in every way that I can implementing a pay-to-participate program for winter track for this year. I'm going to reach out to some of these parents that I have had a chance to talk to and see if they want to sit down and we'll try and work something like that out. But I think that the important message is that we look down the road and pay-to-participate is going to be something that we're going to have to take a close look at. So, not to spend too much time on budget, but let me just hit a couple other areas that we are working on. In the area of transportation. Transportation will look different next year than it has looked in the past. This district has very much accommodated our parents, our students with transportation. We completely scrapped all of our bus routes and started completely fresh to have a fresh perspective of that. We bid all of the routes, and as you know, we have about a 60-40 in-house contracted balance in our transportation. We've designed the routes so that no student will walk more than 3/10 of a mile. The state standard for high school students is 2.5 miles. For this, it's 3/10 of a mile. So parents will see some changes to where their typical bus stops were. We will clearly communicate that with the bus passes. We will also put in place an appeals process so the parents can be heard. We're going to clearly define the concept of hazardous routes so that we can put that into place where it's appropriate. And we're going to put that into place for this year. Once that's settled in, we're going to look at what is the cost impact of having 5/10 of a mile, 1 mile, 1.5 miles, 2 miles, and 2.5 miles. And we're going to run those scenarios, and we now have the piece of management software to do it, which we made that investment about a year ago. We're going to run those scenarios so that when we are making difficult decisions in the budget, we have that data to work with. So we'll be doing that in the coming months, and I'll be working with the finance committee on the results of that. Also, you may remember that we have an energy audit in place, or it's in motion right now. That'll be completed by the end of the summer. We'll be bringing that to the finance committee also, and this is going to take a look at the full scope of our facilities, from HVAC to our windows, our doors, the efficiency, what's the cost to upgrade those, and what's the corresponding savings. It may make a lot of sense to do that, make an investment in those upgrades, and have it paid for with the energy savings. The audit itself, 75% of it was paid by the state through a grant, with the remaining 25% eligible also for reimbursement, depending on what recommendations you put in place. So that'll be running through the Finance Committee, the full board, and the community will hear about that as well. One of the other areas that we're working on is we've requested proposals for an operational review of our district. What are our staffing levels? What do our processes look like? We're going to look at those proposals and take a look at the price of those proposals and make a decision if it makes sense to go forward with that. That ties into, and quickly, and this will be my last point, it ties into something that the state uses to determine whether or not school districts are spending the appropriate amount of money. It's called an adequacy model, and it's a few years old now, and it was basically an evaluation of what should a school district cost based on your characteristics, grade levels, how many kids you have, how many students you have in the district. And I thought it was very good. It was very good. The state did. It was actually the foundation of their funding formula, which unfortunately, given the situation in the state, wasn't really implemented this year. I was in Dr. Kegler's office recently when the Commissioner of Education called her and invited her to be part of a very select group to assemble down at the state and look at the adequacy formula and make sure that, and refresh it, update it, make sure it's still valid. I think that's a great honor for Dr. Kegler to be invited by the Commissioner to do that. So, like I said, it's going to be a very limited group. But to me, it signals that the state is going to utilize the adequacy formula, and that serves us well, because as you know, we're millions and millions below what the state has determined. Here's the appropriate amount for a district of your characteristics to be spent. So the more that's in play, the better off this district's going to be. So I'm sure Dr. Kegler will keep you briefed on that. So that's the first, and as Dr. Kegler said, we're going to do this every budget meeting. We're going to talk about the progress that we're making towards development of the 11, 12, and future budgets, which is another modification of our approach. I think we need to do, which we have done privately, but we may need to do it more openly, a rolling 3-year budget, so that we know that the investments we may make this year, we can reasonably expect to sustain that program and get the return on investment in the future year. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense to make those types of investments. So more to come on that. Okay, thank you, Dr. Kevin.
Nothing else? Okay. Board reports. Anyone have board reports from amongst our committees or otherwise?
The Finance Committee is planning on meeting either the 9th or the 16th of August, depending on when our stakeholders are available. It will be kind of a get to know you and set out the priorities, very similar to the way Sean set up the priorities at this meeting. We're looking forward to get the community involved on the front end this time. We spent a lot of time racing around, not in small part due to the fact that the state did not give us the number that we needed to have until just a few hours before the number was due. We don't want to be in that position again. We will have options, thoughtful, well-scored and empathetic options for next year's budget process. And we start either the 9th or the 16th, depending on which day it is.
Thanks, Tom. It sounds like you have an ambitious agenda.
Keeps me up.
Ron?
Yes.
I just want to mention something.
Sure.
I just wanted to mention that this young man, Paul Peltz, he's a graduate of Howell High School, FPAC. He's a Marlboro resident. I know him well and his family. And they had a nice bio on him in the magazine, and he did play on Broadway in Bye Bye Birdie. And it's a great article if anybody's interested in looking at it, and I'm very proud of very proud of Paul.
Mr. P. Mr. P, right?